Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting day of music theory. Today, we are going to continue our discussion about counting rhythms, and we are going to add eighth notes and eighth rests into our rhythmic vocabulary. So we're going to take a look at 6.1, again, which is on eighth notes, and 6.2, which is on eighth rests. So eighth notes, as we've talked about, in class before, move twice as fast as quarter notes. So if we take a quarter note, which typically gets one beat if we're in 4/4 time, and we divide that in half, we get 2 eighth notes out of that. So 2 eighth notes fit into 1/4. So they are counted using the numbers with and in between. Here is what that looks like. So eighth notes can be joined together in groups of 4. They can also be joined in groups of 2, and they can also be written individually, although that's not as common when we're in 4/4 time. So whenever we have our eighth notes, like it says in the instructions, we add an and in between each beat. So we have 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and, like that. 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. And then if we have a regular quarter note in there, we can just write that still as 1 and 2. Now that's really an and right next to it. We don't have to write that. We don't have to say it, but if we'd like to, if it helps us, we can do that. So 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. And then the last measure they've done for us, 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. So let's take a look here. We are just adding this this term into our rhythmic vocabulary. So we still need to know how many beats a half note gets, how many beats a whole note gets, and how many beats a quarter note get. Okay. And we always, whenever we're counting rhythms, always want to check the time signature to see what, how many beats are in each measure and what note gets the beat. That tells us all the information we need to know. So this is 4/4 time, 4 beats per measure because 4 is on top, and then 4 is on the bottom. That tells us that the quarter note gets the beat. Okay. So that means that we're going to count to 4 in this measure. So I know eighth notes. We still have our big beats on there, and then I add a plus sign to signify the and. So that is 1 and 2 and 3-4 because that half note gets 2 beats. Let's do the next measure. 1 and 2, 3, 4 and. Here's our dotted half note. So that gets 2 beats because it's a half, and then half of its original value because it has a dot. So that's 3 beats. If you can't memorize like the dot rule, just remember that the dotted half note gets 3 beats. So that's 1-2-3, 4 and, 1 and, 2 and, 3, 4. Now we've worked a lot on counting rhythms in class so far this year, but let's see if we can count and clap this together. So we're going to go 1 and 2 and here we go. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Okay, so very similar to what we've done with counting rhythms in the past. It's just now we have something that fits in between those quarter notes. Now let's take a look at what we have here on number 3. Fill in the missing beats with eighth notes and write the counts underneath. So we're in 4/4 again, so we know we're going to need to count to 4 each measure. So this is going to be 1, 2 in parentheses. It looks like we need a 3 and 4. Next up, we've got, this is going to be 3-4 based on that half note there. So that means that we're going to need 2 full beats of eighth notes. I could stem those just as pairs, or I could write those as a set of 4 as well. So that's 1 and, 2 and, 3-4. Here it looks like it's all going to be eighth notes because there's nothing written in for us. So we know that we're going to have and in between every beat, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. Then we've got 2-3-4. And so we need a 1 and in there. Okay, so just kind of fill in the blank on that one. We'll do some more of these tomorrow, but hopefully that gives you the gist of what we are doing with eighth notes. So anytime you see those eighth notes, know that you need to have an and in between the beats. Eighth rests work exactly the same as eighth notes. It's just they are an inactive beat, meaning that we won't clap on them, okay? So eighth rests are a little bit funky looking. They look like kind of like a weird kind of cursive 7. So that is an example of an eighth rest. They get a half beat each if we're in 4/4 time, just like the eighth notes do. Our quarter rests, remember, we're doing a quick review. Those look like a Z with a C on them. That's cursive. Then our top hat is our half rest. Our hole in the ground is our whole rest, and that gets 4 beats, okay? So write the counts under the rhythm. You'll notice here that we have just a regular old eighth note by itself. The eighth note has what's called a flag on it, and that tells us that's the main difference between how we tell if it's a quarter note or an eighth note, is if it has this little flag attached to it, that tells you it's an eighth note. So this is going to be, these are basically pairs of eighth notes. It's just one of them is a rest. So we're going to put a rest on, or parentheses around every rest that we have. 2, oops, wrong way there. Here we go. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now it looks like the rest is on the beat. So that's 1 and rest and rest and rest and. Now it's getting a little bit trickier. So we have 1 and with the rest, 2 with the rest, and 3 and with the rest, 4 and. That's a lot right there. So take a second to write those in. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, just because every single beat is filled with some type of eighth note or eighth rest. And then I just go back and make sure that I have my parentheses in the right spots. Okay. Next one, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now I'm just going to go back and put my parentheses around my rests, just like that. Now, this is going to be kind of tricky to count and clap because we're going to have a lot of rests in there. So I'm actually going to say rest each time. So let's break this down into 2 measured chunks, just so it's a little bit easier to see. So let's try these first 2 measures. So that's going to be 1 rest, 2 rest, 3 rest, 4 rest, rest, and rest, and rest, and rest, and. So whenever I do eighth notes, I like to say the word rest because it helps me keep that beat a little bit better, okay? Now let's go on to the next one. This one's gonna be a little bit more complicated because it switches where it's at. The other 2 were pretty consistent. So this is going to be 1 rest, rest, and 3 rest, rest, and rest, and rest, and 3 rest, 4 rest, okay? That one's tricky, and that might take you a couple times, but that's a fun kind of puzzle to figure out. So I might take a couple minutes right now to pause the video and see if you can get those last 2 measures, because that's pretty tricky, okay? So we will do some more of this tomorrow in class. But I think that is enough for today. So we will go over the rest of these tomorrow in class. Just note that the big takeaways for today, be able to recognize eighth notes and eighth rests. The eighth rests looks like little 7s. The eighth notes look like quarter notes, but with a little flag on them, and they can be in pairs, and they can be in sets of 4 as well, like that. But that is our lesson for today. Just remember that you always have to have and if you see eighth notes, and that and goes in between each of the numbers. That's all we have for you today, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.